Is there such a thing as too much luck? Is there such a thing as too much fun? Messing around, wondering how it's taken so long. I'm really so strong. It's not too much at all.
Welcome back to Too Much. I am sitting here today with my friend of almost 20 years. I am aging myself. She may look young, but it's a ruse. I'm here with Vance Garrett,
Hi, everybody. Hi,
who
Denise.
I call the godfather of immersive entertainment. That is the moniker I have dubbed him. I mean, I use it, so other people must use it. And let me tell you why I have dubbed him the godfather of immersive. So, Vance is an award winning creative director, producer, scenarist, and cultural architect who helped launch and define the experiential entertainment movement as a founding team member of its premier projects, including Sleep No More, Museum of Ice Cream, and Refinery 29's 29 Rooms. Vance creates original immersive worlds, theatrical events, art exhibitions, modern rituals, and large scale location based entertainment, cultivating the conditions for collective joy. Ooh. Specializing in multisensory storytelling, he conceives, writes, and designs experiences that connect audiences to something larger than themselves, fostering belonging, wonder, and cultural impact. To date, his work has collectively reached more than 3 million guests across the immersive projects he has launched and led. As Westfield's first VP of Experiential, Vance partnered with Broadway and film producer Scott Sanders of The Color Purple to bring innovative live entertainment to a global portfolio of more than 100 retail and mixed use properties. As the inaugural Chief Creative Officer of Constellation Immersive, a CAA affiliated studio, he developed and directed Elf on the Shelf's Magical Holiday Journey and conceived Disco Oasis, to this day, one of my favorite DJ experiences.
Very
The aesthetics were on
legendary.
10.
Yeah. Denise, I still have that photo that we took of you on the glitter moon as your profile picture whenever you call me. So I hope our listeners will be able to find that at some moment. It's
We
iconic.
might have to, maybe
Yeah,
I'll do it. I'll add it to the social for the post. We'll show them
love it.
some of the
I think
magic
we
of
have
Disco
to.
Oasis. Yeah. Okay, so Disco
Yeah.
Oasis, just in case you need a little more tea, he collaborated with Nile Rodgers and created a launch platform for Madonna's Finally Enough Love. And his work has earned Clio Awards, BizBash honors, including recognition among top people in events, the Tribeca Film Festival Storyscapes Award, and a Drama Desk. He is a member of the World Experience Organization, a mentor for the Australian Indigenous Mentorship Experience, a graduate of Northwestern University, and serves on UCLA's Center of Performing Arts Executive Producers Council. He's also a guest speaker at Northwestern's Master of Science in Leadership for Creative Enterprises program and the Creative Independent Producer Alliance. Welcome, Vance.
Thanks for asking me to chat with you. We chatted many years ago on a podcast, and it's been a whole life cycle and then some. So I'm happy to be back speaking with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I asked Vance here today is because, as we all know, Too Much really explores new blueprints for the new worlds and what are we moving into? And so Vance, on his great Substack, which I suggest you subscribe to, had wrote an article about new formats for news stories, and anything new I love to read about and learn about. And so I wanted him to come here today to talk us through what is this paradigm we're moving into in storytelling and immersive entertainment. And it touches on a lot of different concepts that you can apply to your work, even if you're not in the like creative immersive space. And so we're going to dig in and have a fruitful conversation around that.
I can't wait. These are my favorite things to discuss. So hit me.
Okay, we're going to start very 101. What classifies something as immersive?
It's a great question, and there is not one universally accepted definition. I will say what my definition is.
Yeah.
I come from a theater background, an events background, a nightlife background, but mostly theater. I was a theater kid growing up. And so when I think of immersive entertainment or immersive experiences, it's when the audience, who traditionally was watching the action on the stage, when the audience and the players or the performers are in the same story world, they're on the same
Mm,
and they coexist in that world. and they can affect change. You as an audience member, you're literally like written into or integrated into the theatrical experience. It doesn't necessarily mean participatory theater, you know, where let's say you're at a magic show and someone calls you up on a stage and you have to pull a card. Like that's not necessarily what we're talking about. Nor for me is it when theater surrounds you and there's a whole genre of live experiences where the action surrounds the audience member, but they're, you know, they're not really in the story world. That's not what I call immersive theater. Other people might, but for me, it's really about the audience and the players being on the same plane and everything else, all the other action and the environment and the conflicts. That's the world that I've been kicking around in since before we even called it immersive theater. You know, we didn't even have the
Totally.
words for it. It was for me born out of my experience in nightlife where there is no, you know, cast. I mean, there might be go-go talent or there might be club talent or bartenders, but there's no cast. Everyone's on the same plane. Literally, everyone's on the dance floor. And that foundation really continues to inform my point of view on immersive theater, on immersive experiences, on where we're going, and what we've lost over the past 20-ish years with the challenges we're facing globally. We'll get into all that, I'm sure.
Yes. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. I think you're right. The language for immersive storytelling has almost light years evolved since you started in this space. It became a lot more, trendy, part of the cultural consciousness, like more of sort of what we understand experience can look and feel like in the worlds that we live in. And I had never thought about the language aspect is now we're sort of expanding the vocabulary of this as it is still very much a new frontier. And so you had sort of like the V1, let's say like the MVP, early stage immersive was these IRL physical experiences. Then you had V2, which evolved into Museum of Ice Cream, where all of a sudden your phone became a key part of the experience. And so, how do they merge? And what about those versions have felt stale or tired? Like, how do you figure out what is V3?
Great question. The aspects of immersive work that I've always loved is that it feels like an integrated form. And it feels like I said the performers and the audience members are on the same plane. It feels like everything is talking to one another and it's not fragmented. That bucket or that platform to me allows for collective joy, meaning as an individual, I get to experience what someone else is experiencing in a joyful way and it amplifies it. And it's an amazing experience. It's an amazing experience. What's happened since V1 and V2, let's put Sleep No More in the bucket of V1.
Yeah.
Phones were not as integrated into our life. At least when Punch Drunk, the theater company behind Sleep No More, when they started doing their work, phones were not glued to our sides. So when Sleep No More launched in 2011, you know, apps were new still. Instagram was new. Our
Yeah.
relationship to one another still felt grounded in live interpersonal engagements. Well, fast forward a couple of years, Instagram is like rocking and rolling. You know, come 2012, 2013, 2014, definitely 2016. And the way that we related to one another changed quite a bit. It wasn't necessarily, you know, communicating with someone who's in the room with you, whether it's you're at a social experience or a ticketed experience. A lot of what happened at that moment was that immersive attraction or that immersive world was really just a backdrop or a platform or a studio to broadcast out, to play out to people who weren't at the actual location where you were. So I'm at the Museum of Ice Cream. I take a picture in the sprinkle pool. I'm not really considering about the other people on the periphery who are waiting to get in the sprinkle pool. I'm thinking about how is this picture going to play out around the world or on my social media platform. So now where we are, and that has not slowed down. In my opinion, that's not slowed down. But you take the past decade, so that was 2016, 2026 now. there's a whole generation, there's a whole swath of humanity now who feels like have not learned how to be relational in
Mhm.
real life. And yet to vilify the phone, which I don't do. Like I'm not one to be like lock your phone up indefinitely. I don't champion for that. But we have a new culture where it's very tricky to know how to relate to one another or how to coexist with one another in real time in our bodies. Of course, there are people and individuals who still know how to do it, but those collective spaces are rarer and rarer. And the phone's not going anywhere, and it shouldn't. What I'm interested in is how can we work with emerging technology, the phone and whatever else is coming up? How do we work with the ploy of AI, which is informing how we communicate with one another and how we express ourselves? How do we bring that into the experiences? And the stakes around how we relate to our environment continues to become more and more and more important year after year after year. And so we have a lot that we have to figure out. So I think this next this next wave of immersive experiences, it's still like V1. How do we dissolve or become part of a story that's bigger than our individual selves? How do we broadcast or relate to technology in a way that doesn't undermine the presence of the live experience? And now, how do we coexist as communities or individuals in a space and pay attention again to the environment around us? There's probably 20 other things that I can say, but a shorter way of saying that is we have new challenges that we have to figure out as a people. And going back to the story piece, I feel like we've played out a lot of the stories or explored a lot of the stories that have gotten us to this point, and we're looking around. I'm going to generalize, but we're looking around. We're like, we're not in a good place culturally or as a human race. What stories are going to take us to the next place
Mm.
where we can relate differently to one another, where we can relate differently to ourselves, to our bodies, and to the environment? I've thrown a lot at you. Feel free to ask
Yeah.
questions or
How
focus.
do you mine what how do you know which stories you think are gonna be the ones that are gonna be the most relevant or pervade the culture? Because you have a very good intuitive sense on hitting the zeitgeist. Your track record obviously proves that. So, can you explain to us how do you even figure out what threads to probe?
Uh, some of it's intuition, and that is a really hard thing to explain. Intuition, a lot of us believe, is maybe our highest selves or our most intelligent selves, and to try to talk through. Oh, I feel like this is it's a little tricky. I will say I like to pay attention to anything and everything I can culturally. What's happening in fashion? What's happening walking down the street? What's happening in hospitality, cuisine? What's happening in mental wellness, fitness, and it's not always conscious, but I start to feel or I tune into, oh, there's a theme here. Like there's a theme that's emerging. I'll give you an example. You know, over the past couple years, it felt like there was a lot of hunger for romance or like gothic romance and Poor Little Things. Was that the name of the movie? Yeah, came out, and that was a. Do I feel like I have the title wrong? But that's it.
Wuthering Heights?
Poor Things. Yeah. Am I getting it wrong?
I'm thinking of Wuthering Heights.
Well, this is where I'm going to. This is what I'm winding up
Okay,
to.
okay. So
So
oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the Emma Stone movie,
yeah, yeah,
Poor
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm with you now. I'm
yeah,
with you
yeah.
now.
Which has more than a whiff of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is trending.
Well, and so okay, so I'll just I knew years ago. I'm like,
I know Vance has been talking about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein for 20 years.
this could be the whole. I was like, I'm like, y'all, we are in a science fiction moment. We got to go back to the source. Who created science fiction? Oh, it was Mary Shelley. She knew what was up. And sure enough, we've been in a big Frankenstein moment. We've been in a big Gothic moment. We've been in a big Gothic romance moment. We're in the Wuthering Heights chapter right now. But I looked, I'm like, well, why? What stories like got us to this place? Like, what stories are we not paying attention to? And what is the story that would focus our attention collectively in a way that would move us forward? And when I think of science fiction and I think of Mary Shelley and I think of the modern Prometheus, I'm like, who are who are those
Yeah.
Guys, who's our Frankenstein of the moment? The guys who are trying to steal knowledge and are creating these tech monsters and they don't know what to do with it. Let's say Elon Musk, just for example. I was like, oh, I wonder if we could resurrect the Frankenstein mythology right now, and I wonder if we would have something to learn from that. So that's one way. And sure enough, right now we are deep in Gothic romance. Yes?
Okay, we know you've been tinkering with Mary Shelley for like years. So, do you just track when you think is the right time? Because ultimately, like you're ahead of the curve in a lot of ways, but you know how to hold the idea in sort of cocoon in a metamorphosis. Whereas I find I tend to be ahead of the pack, but I don't always know when the variables are working with the culture. I'm like, I'm just going to do and say the thing versus holding it back until I believe the culture and the humanity and society is ready to receive that concept.
Yes, I think I'm following you. For my practice as an artist, I am an idea fountain. And
We know.
so and
Yeah.
so we know. So
Prolific AF.
I will, but ideas are ideas are ideas. And I love ideas, but they're ideas. They're not the same as executing on an idea, putting it forth into everyone else's reality. And it can be tricky to be intoxicated by too many ideas because you get pulled all over the place. I've learned if I have an idea, great. I will file it away. I will capture it in a spreadsheet or a pile of post-it notes or both, and I will think of it as a seed and it will sit there until the conditions in my own life are right to bring it forward and and there's an audience for it and there's a conversation to be had around it. Disco Oasis, for example, which you already referenced. I mean, I wrote this idea for taking a disco, combining it with a botanic garden, a garden, on a post-it note when I lived in New York. So that would have was before 2017. And after a few other life chapters, found myself in a position where I was with a group, Constellation Immersive, who had access to a botanic garden, and we needed an idea. And I dusted off that concept on that post-it note. And the other piece was the world needed an idea like that at the time. We were coming out of COVID or coming back out of our homes during COVID, and we needed a space to commune, and an outdoor beautiful botanic garden infused with disco was like that's what the world needed at that moment. It wasn't just that I wanted it or had the resources or the
Mhm.
connection to make it happen. It's that there was a conversation to be had. So I hold on to my ideas. I try to be as patient with them as possible. And then when I'm in a place to push them forward and it looks like the world is ready to water it, that's the time to make it happen.
Wow, I can say it was needed. It gave me a lot of joy, restored me. I was able to wear outfits again. It really was what the doctor ordered at that time. You talk about producers and what their job is in facilitating immersive experiences. So you said this thing that I thought was interesting, that you said it wasn't about, when we think of producers, they are really like the CEO of a project. They're the person that is idea to execution, making it happen
Yeah.
and birthing it. And so you say it's not their job to make it happen. Rather, it's their job to create the conditions for new kinds of stories to exist. What do you mean by that? Can you explain how producers, beyond the scope of making it happen, can think more about creating a place for new kinds of stories to thrive?
Or a couple things there. I want to acknowledge identifying as a producer was probably the last piece of my creative artistic development that I felt comfortable with. I resisted the idea of being a producer for so long because I didn't think of being a producer as being someone who actually had authorship on what was happening, nor were they I didn't feel like being a producer was being an artist, and I identify as being an artist. With that, when you're an artist, you're a vessel, right? Like you are a vessel to things that are beyond your control. And when I say bring the conditions together to manifest other stories, I'm paraphrasing myself. What I mean is you can line up things, but you can't force things to happen. So you can try to line up the audience. You can try to line up the funds. You can try to line up the designers. You can bring the idea to the table, the core idea, but you can't force it to happen exactly as you want to. So that's one thing that I mean by that. What I also mean, and this is maybe a little more unique or specific to immersive work. When I talk about story, I often feel that immersive work is creating a container where many stories can happen. You're
Mm.
creating, you're holding, there it is, holding a space, manifesting a space, designing a space where perhaps there is a call to action for an audience member, perhaps there's an invitation and everyone feels like they understand what the theme is or what the world is that they're stepping into. But the truth is, like, if you have agency to explore that environment, you're gonna walk away with a different story than someone else's. Sleep No More, you after you I'm gonna assume people who are listening generally understand or are familiar with Sleep No More. When people walked in the McKittrick Hotel, they were encouraged to go off in different directions and follow whatever character they wanted to, or go in whatever drawer they wanted to, or you created your own story as you went through it. So I also mean that meaning as well. We're
Yeah.
in the space where a lot of stories can coexist and can happen.
What I find interesting about immersive experiences is what you like classify or clarify as pre-verbal storytelling. It's like, like experience first, finding the language or the synthesis of it later. Can you
Yeah.
just expound upon sort of that?
Yeah, sure. So love the senses. I love sound. I love music. I love scent. Denise, as you know, scent is like
His
it's
next frontier.
the next frontier. But I love appealing to the senses. And what I learned, when I was throwing parties, when I was throwing parties at Roseland Ballroom, I would do like, we're throwing a leather party. Let's pump the scent of bacon in the air. And it worked with the theme of the party that we had. And I realized, I'm like, oh, this is the vocabulary in which this sort of experience needs to happen. Lines aren't going to work. Lyrics aren't going to work. Like, telling a story is not the thing. We have to appeal to the senses. Nightlife and a lot of immersive theater are very similar in that regard, where you are dissolving into a space and your senses pick up on what's happening, and there may or may not be any language. What I like about suspending verbal language is that you have to drop into your body.
Mhm.
You have to avail yourself to what's happening right there and then, and not your idea of what's happening. Let me see if I can give you an example of it. I keep going back to Sleep No More because I think it's the easiest one. But maybe we'll let's use Disco Oasis, for example. So, again, let's go back to this one. There wasn't really a story to it. All people knew is that it was a roller disco in a botanic garden with a tagline where music flows, magic grows. And they get there, they have to walk a long way, a really long way to find the entrance to the actual destination. And the first thing that we designed for them was a maze, and it said "Get lost in music." That was it. Like, it was just that's the only language that we said. It was a neon sign that said "Get lost in music," and then guests entered into effectively a garden hedge maze, and they started playing. They started giggling. There wasn't a story that they signed up for telling them what was going to happen. They trusted us as experienced designers that were literally leading them down the right path. And people started giggling and started exploring and started looking around the corner. And when we removed the story, we removed the idea that you knew exactly what was going to happen coming up. Like, you had to drop into your body, and it's really fun to be in your body. Not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Not like I want to, yeah, there's a lot that happens in our bodies, but it can be really fun. That's that's experiencing life through your senses. And because we didn't tell people what was going to happen, or they didn't know what story that they were on, eventually they rounded this corner, and there was this huge, glowing, almost Emerald City-esque
Mhm.
destination that popped out that surprised everybody. And it I think wowed people, and there was a sense of wonder, and there was an awesomeness, or they were awestruck by it. And then later they told people about it. Then there was language around it. So that's one example of or one scenario by what I mean by that.
Well, we're
Yeah.
talking about presence, which is just being in the moment, which I think I feel like more and more there's a counterculture movement that I participate in where, I miss the days where a phone did not dominate the nightlife experience. I miss the days where a phone did not dominate a festival. As much as we have gained a lot with the phone, there was a level where nightclub spaces used to be places where you would go and be messy. And now no one wants to be messy because there's a level of curation. I don't want to be seen or caught this way. And I think we've lost that sort of presence sometimes. The right nightclub as a DJ, the right nightclub, the right conditions, you
Yeah.
still have it. But a lot of times people are not in the experience. Yeah, they're documenting the
Yeah.
experience. They're not of the experience. And so I'm like, you're not actually here. You're doing a thing where you're showing everybody what's happening, that you're here, but you are not here. You have taken yourself out of the deep presence we can have when we are in nightlife or a concert or a festival.
Amen. Amen. And you and I see the same thing. So both of us worked through nightlife, through New York nightlife. And when I started my career, phones were not allowed in the space, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
phones
exactly.
were prevalent. Like, God forbid you should take a picture. Like, that would have been the ultimate party foul. You do not take, um,
The pictures from that era, by the way, are also like blurry. Like the way I go back and I look at like the pictures from when I was in college and I'm like out and I'm like, these are all terrible photos. You're just like, "Ah," like, it's like, and now of course everything's so much more editorial.
yeah. I want to give you a personal anecdote. At that time, when I was bartending, or when I was in nightlife, I came in as a bartender, and I was a shirtless bartender. And so, like, I was on Fire Island and wherever, like, and you would think that would be really fun. There is a lot of fun to it, but wow, I was the king of projecting outside of myself, looking in to the point where I'm like, I'm dysmorphic. What is
Mhm.
going on? And I found this amazing Alexander technique teacher named Chloe Wing, who's no longer with us. Chloe Wing, but she's what we now would call a somatic practitioner, and she taught me. She's like, I was telling her what's going on, and she taught me. She's like, Vance, you're just outside of yourself, attacking yourself. We just have to make sure that you stay inside of yourself, looking out. You are consciousness looking out. And the way she worded it and the work we did together, I'm like, oh wow, that's the name of the game. When you are inside, looking out and connecting with your environment, you are in control. It's fun. The world is big. The world pops. That is not the case when you deny your sensual experience with the world and are looking at yourself from a mirror or from a phone. Other people might enjoy it. I am not, I know for myself, I'm not present. At that moment, I am not actually in my body with other people at that time. I am on some other plane, and I don't think it's that fun. It's,
I don't
I feel
I don't
lonely.
know if they enjoy it. I think there's a story they tell themselves they enjoy it, but I think it's also a mechanism for discomfort. I'm
Yeah.
gonna distract myself here in this experience with my phone because I don't wanna socialize or I feel uncomfortable socializing, or I care about external perception so deeply, I'm not willing to let the guard down. And part of why I love DJing and I love nightlife is because it's a very authentic place, even if it's like messy or complicated at times. It is a very honest space.
Yeah, it is an honest space. I've danced to your sets before, and I know how you work as a DJ, and I know that you're reading the room, and I know you want the room to dance. You want the room to come together, and you want people to experience collective joy, or what others call collective
Yeah, or
effort.
fall in love. That's
Fall
happened.
of dissolve into something bigger than yourself. That's that's
Yeah.
all, that's what I was taught, and that's what I believe is a hallmark of happiness. You get to lose your construction or soften your construction about yourself or see yourself not as an individual, but as something bigger than yourself. And it's
Yeah.
so fun. It's
It's
so
so
fun
fun.
when it
Just like to
happens.
be with the people. It creates whether or not you're having deep conversations, you are creating a connection of humanness. Like it's not about necessarily like I'm me know this person really well, but we're all moving to this song together and we
Yeah.
have broken the wall, you know? Like
Yeah, totally. We're feeling a vibe. We're feeling something. We're all connected on some other
yeah,
level.
we're connected on a thread together
Yeah.
whether I never see you again. And I think there's something very special about that that I miss. I sort of sometimes wish I would go out and people would be like, "We're taking your phone,"
Yeah.
and see what would happen. Because a lot of times I read
Uh,
these things where someone say they take the phone and people are like, "That was the best," because they were forced to be so present.
I wonder about that often. I mean, is the name of the game as experience designers, is it to take the phone, or is it to find a way to integrate the phone into the experience, or is it
Yeah,
a way to preserve space for the phone, that you can use it on the peripheral or on the sides, or is the challenge to make the room so exciting or more than a visual experience that the phone can't do it justice and the phone would just get in the way? These are things I think about.
right.
This is
Every time I photograph the sunset does not do it justice.
Speaking of sunset, how do you feel about this sun? Like,
Your face? I think we're just accepting it's part of the immersive experience.
okay, I could pull a blind, but we're just gonna go with it. We're just gonna
I think
dissolve.
you just need to be like,
Yeah.
stop looking at yourself.
Oh, great. Very well done, Denise. Very well done.
No problem. Here to
You are
here
a
to be
genius.
of service.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can pull a blind if you'd like to.
Yeah,
I'm rolling. I'm very much these days
we're just
very
rolling
present,
with
rolling, going with the flow of life.
it.
As I DJ'd on a boat a couple weeks ago, my mantra of the weekend became be one with the wave, be one with the wave. And I don't even like boats, but somehow this weekend I was like into the boat because I became one with the wave. So that's like 2026. This is like
Yeah.
my vibe. Be one with the wave.
Have you spoken about the DJ gig yet? Other than
No,
you said, do we want to talk about it? Is this going to be too much of a digression? I'm excited about it because we're talking about the Super Bowl. We're talking about Super Bowl weekend. We're talking about bad
I
news.
DJ'd the NBC pre-show. So if you were watching the Super Bowl before it aired, you would have seen me and maybe some Bravo characters on a boat having the time of our lives. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I became one with the wave and now Vance is one with the light,
yeah. We're just really communing with our environment.
with the elements.
Great.
Yeah.
The elements. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you did a beautiful historic timeline of the evolution of immersive entertainment, and you obviously talked about one of my great loves, which is musical theater.
Yes, yes.
And pushing the boundaries of musical theater, moving into music videos, moving into social media, like all the ways that we have seen story evolve.
Yeah.
And my question for you is what do you think the next frontier of immersive is or storytelling? Like where do you think this is going?
Yeah. I don't know for sure, but I'll just air out things that I'm wondering about, that I'm having fun thinking about. And for those who didn't read the Substack or aren't going to, I'm a theater guy through and through. Denise is referring to me having traced the lineage of lyric theater, musical theater, going from Oklahoma to Company by Sondheim to A Chorus
Chorus
Line.
line.
And it's fun seeing how storytelling, how live storytelling evolves every generation and how it becomes either more integrated or the chorus enters into the foreground and we hear those stories of those individuals. I think the missed opportunity, or what we still have to grapple with, is not just the ensemble all speaking or hearing about the ensemble. it's it's what the environment has to say as well. It sounds a little hippy dippy, right? But when I look at what we call world building and immersive experience, it's the space that's the thing. And I don't feel like we, at least as Americans, still don't think like we know how to relate to our space, like to our environment.
Mm.
We're as Jane Goodall, I think, would point out, like we're the only species, we're really smart, but like why are we tearing up our environment? And because environment is so important to immersive work, I still think that's a frontier that we haven't really cracked yet, is how to make the environment come alive enough or show how you as an audience member or someone who's experiencing the environment, how much reciprocity there is between the give and take. What you're giving the environment, it's giving back to you. That's heady, but I do think that I think that that is something we're experiencing. Rediscovering music as something that grounds the collective in space again. Denise, it's what you're talking about with um, the nightlife experiences or parties. I think we've barely scratched the surface with sound design and how cool that is
Mhm.
as a way to hold people together and almost feels like a lost art form. So like that's something I'm really excited about. I think that the idea of ritual
Mhm.
is making a comeback.
We did a
Or
podcast episode about ritual.
did you? And I didn't.
Yeah. It's okay.
Okay,
We did it with Ashwarya, founder of Brightland Olive Oil, and so talked about like her business and how ritual is a part of her business. But also, she's Indian, so she has a long history of ritual in her life, and someone that I go to as my number one ritual maker. So the episode centers on how do we cultivate ritual in a world that desperately needs it, as we're losing religious structures.
yeah,
What does that look like?
amazing. Well, that's okay. So that's I'm spending a lot of time thinking about ritual. So I need to listen to that. I need to listen to that episode. But of course, immersive experiences and ritual, depending on what the ritual is, have a lot in common. You guys all know I started off in nightlife. Started off with a black party, which was a ritual, like happened once a year. And as we're barreling towards, if we're in it, we're in this economy of identity now. I'm like, people want to feel like they're part of, they want to know who they are. And we only can know who we are in relation to other beings.
Yeah.
And we don't know where our tribe is or our community is like, we got to rediscover that. And to me, rituals are the thing that help define, that shape my identity a lot. I don't know who I am or when I want to really look at who I am, I look at what I do over and over again and with whom I do it and how. Rituals are also fun. It's a way to transcend time and space in a way without losing your body. And it's not escapist. It feels like connecting with something as opposed to running away from something. But like rituals, we're so fragmented and rituals hold like groups of people together. That's what theater does as well. It brings a collective together. So I think rituals are going to be a bigger thing in the immersive experience world. I don't want to call it entertainment, immersive
Yeah, I
experience.
think that's astute. I also think we talked about this, but when I was in Japan, I went to Team Lab, which I suggest you go to. And one of the things that stuck out most to me was the use of water as a
Yeah,
new sort of sensory element. I thought that was different and interesting because at this point, a lot of these Instagram esque museums, art, obviously, Team Lab's a bit more elevated than that. It just feels a little bit predictable, I guess, or obvious. And so to be in something which was using different materials, like, they had live flowers, water, we're really leaning on
cool.
natural
Mhm.
elements.
Was it the natural elements or was it that it was all tactile, that it appealed to the body?
I
But
think that's a great extraction from that. Yeah, I think it is about the tactileness or, oh my god, my feet are in water. Like, you have nowhere but to think about that moment because it's so jarring from where you just came from.
yeah,
And so there's something about presence there and awe that I really appreciate on a lot of levels. I love when you step into those spaces that make you just have the wonder.
I love it too. I love it. And you can't do it the same way over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if I said it in my article, but when I think about new formats, one of the other benefits of when you do something slightly different is that it does allow for wonder because the audience can't know what's coming up. It's a different sequence. It's a different way of arranging the space, and we really need that, and we really want that.
We need curiosity so deeply right now. We need the imagination more than ever. That's my newest thing is I'm like 2026 like we need everyone's best imaginations to build something more beautiful and to have spaces that allow us to get back to an imaginative space, a present space. Like that's really a healing thing right now because it's a very overwhelming world, and can feel very hopeless, and we need to know that we have this beautiful thing, our imagination and curiosity, that will usher us through.
I 100% agree. I think our imagination is another way to dismantle stories that are no longer serving us,
Mhm.
and show us a better way of existing. And yet, I want to say I have collaborators, I have friends who don't feel like they're that imaginative. And so, as an experience creator, I like to deliver experiences where they can drop into their body, feel safe, and experience wonder if they can't conjure it up themselves.
Which I
So,
believe everyone can, but I definitely think it's a
I
cultivation
think so
thing.
too. I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. But I'm just listening. People are like, I'm not imaginative. Are you? Are you
You
really?
are, you just
You
have to
are.
tap into it.
Right.
And you've dribbled it out a little bit, but I'd love for you to explain what we can learn right now as applied to like the political landscape, our daily lives. What can we learn from the principles of immersive or principles of storytelling to incorporate into our realities?
We can learn that the stories that got us up to this place are not necessarily the stories that we have to carry forward. And just because someone's told you a story doesn't mean it's the only one that's out there. What I love most about immersive experiences, amongst it's one of the things I love. It is a container for many stories. There's not one truth. There's not one way that things have to be. I think that is really confrontational, and it's a radical idea when you look at the American story or the American hero. The idea of the lone individual, the individual is the hero. What would it look like if you're in a space where multiple people are the heroes, or they're not even on the hero journey? What if they're on some other journey?
What's the alternative journey?
I don't know. I am interested in stories that don't just center the individual as the protagonist, or it's the main event. I also think it's what yeah, we've been dancing around, and what you were just speaking to. Immersive experiences play to the body. We are human beings in a body in the real world. We are not Chat GPT. We are not AI. We are not this disembodied thing. We are these sensate entities that have to coexist in a larger context with other people. Again, in the environment. I keep saying the environment over and over again. I think immersive experiences have the opportunity to teach us how to be a human again, how to be a
Mm,
human with other people again, how to live in a body and experience joy and pleasure. Because that is where joy and pleasure lives. It's in the body. It's not in the ideas. It's not in language. It's actually right here.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want us all to just sit with that. A lot of my work this next couple months is, as much as I'm very much in my body when I'm DJing, a lot of my work right now is getting more in my body when I'm not DJing.
That is valiant work. Yeah.
Well, came up twice in conversation. So I was like, all right, I'm paying attention. I'm listening. I'm hearing the feedback.
Can I just pause for a second? I'm not sure everyone knows what being in their body actually
Oh,
means.
great. Give us.
I don't have a definition or an explanation ready to go, but it's it sounds I've seen people just kind of pull back when when I say language around that. It's
Mhm.
actually feeling what's happening in your body and being able to name what's happening in your body. That's maybe even a more, it's like slightly advanced way of thinking about it. But it's like I just had the sun beating down on me for a good part of this conversation, and, like, the sweat is dribbling down, and I'm feeling it, like, on my torso,
Yeah,
and I'm aware of that.
right.
That's
Well,
being
it's
in
like,
my it's
yeah,
being
I think being embodied and integrated in that is, oh, I'm noticing that my chest is clenching. I feel uncomfortable around this thing. I think for me, because I live in this very drastic spectrum where when I'm DJing, I'm in flow state, right? I'm in a very the supremest version of being in your body, which is like, I am not thinking at all. I am a present channel. I am in the flow of life, which for me is always the peak, like where I want to hit. And in my day life, my day-to-day life, it's I'm writing, I'm podcasting, I'm speaking. And so I'm very much in my thinking self, and I'm figuring out how to merge the two or be able to turn them on and off a little bit more simply, because I know, I'm a dancer, I'm a DJ. I know my capacity to be in my
Yeah.
body. I'm very aware of what's happening in my body, but I tend to overthink as sort of an intellectual person or an academic who really craves knowledge and thought and personal development work. And so it's like sometimes it's like maybe we're just like going a little too hard in that
Yeah.
direction. And maybe there's somewhere in the middle where it's just stop thinking so much, just fucking do.
Yeah, it's always it's yes, yes, it's tricky when you're smart, when you like being smart, when you
Yeah, why are we thinking about that thing 80 times? Like, who cares?
well, yeah, I like to think there's nothing wrong with thinking, just be able to see it as thinking.
I think
Um,
we can over calibrate where we're living in our head too much
yeah,
versus, I think I definitely have found that at least as I've been, working on my book and things
yeah,
like that, where I'm tend to overthink it versus just doing it. And it's like, listen, girl, you'll figure it out later.
right,
You don't need to over index on this thing. And that's what I'm really just trying to toggle with now is like, okay, if we're in the body, we're present, we're in flow, and like let's just like get there, and then the thinking can come later, but let's just see what happens if we just start here
great.
versus here.
You're doing great. You're doing
Thanks,
great.
thanks. This is the
Yeah,
work. This is the work of the next couple months. So
this is the work.
hopefully that clarifies.
Yeah. You know how I get into flow, Denise? How I've learned? By going for a walk. As Denise
Mm.
says, I don't have a
I thought you were
car.
gonna say
I'm
looking at your spiders outside your window.
That's one way of doing it as well, but I love spiders. I live in
A little witch's
a lot of
cottage.
little witches. I'm being a little silly. I walk like everywhere. I don't have a
Yeah.
car. I walk whenever. I find flow by walking, so like I can drop in immediately. And
Yeah.
that's how I've started doing my writing too. While I'm walking, I'm like, oh, the ideas are coming now, but they're kind of like they're born out of movement and doing and being. It's
That's
not top down. It's like it's in the movement.
Walking is the best tool for generation. This is what I do when I solo travel. I'm often just walking by myself, creating that space for the generation, like to show up. But it's like having a clear space and boredom, that's when the channel is open.
Yeah, just food for thought the
In
next time.
defense of walking in Los Angeles. That's his thesis and his essay. That's the point of this talk.
That is going to be my next Substack
In
newsletter.
defense of walking in
I
Los
have
Angeles.
notes on it. I have
Your next immersive experience is walking across Los Angeles.
Don't kid, Denise. I've
I know.
been I've been yeah, I've been lining up notes about that. Yeah. Way to give it away. Way
I'll
to give
participate. I'm in. I'll do it. Uh, but Vance, thank you so much for taking the time today.
My
Will
pleasure.
you please tell everyone where they can find you?
Sure, you can find my Substack. My newsletter is Advanced Experiences. See how that works? Advanced Experiences. And that's probably the easiest way to find me. You can find me also online. It's all Vance Garrett, vancegarrett.com, and my Instagram is Vance Garrett as well. Two R's, two T's.
Great. We will put it in the show notes as well so everyone can find you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you taking the time today. And thank you so much for sharing this wisdom for the new storytelling for the new world.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for having me. Thanks for being a part of my story.
Thank you so much for listening. If you do like listening, it would mean the world to us if you could subscribe or review the podcast anywhere that you watch or listen to the podcast. It really helps with the algorithm to share this with the world. I want to give a special thank you to young Spielberg and Sarah Yarkin for their beautiful work on our opening jingle, Dana Bulos for her help with the beautiful art, and to all of you for tuning in and keeping this dream alive. If you want to hear certain topics or from certain guests, please feel free to email us. We really, really want to hear from you and see how we can best support you. See you next time.